Trafficking thrives in the shadows, but even Wall Street can help shine a light. Hi, I'm Rob West. Nearly 50 million people around the world are trapped in modern slavery, including forced labor and human trafficking. But Christian investors are using their influence to confront exploitation and encourage companies to protect the vulnerable. Will Lofland joins us today with an encouraging update. And then it's on to your calls at 800-525-7000. That's 800-525-7000. This is Faith and Finance Live, biblical wisdom for your financial journey. Will Lofland joins us again today. He's Managing Director of Faith-Based Investing at Guidestone Funds, one of our valued underwriters. Guidestone helps individuals, churches, and ministry organizations pursue their financial goals through investment solutions designed to reflect their Christian values. Will, always a treat to have you here.
Thanks, Rob. Always glad to be here.
Well, Guidestone has made combating human trafficking a major focus of its faith-based investing efforts. I'd love for you to help us understand the scope of this tragedy and why investors have an important role to play in addressing it.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you think about companies around the world and you think about issues there, human trafficking is something that maybe hides a little bit in the shadows, but is actually a very real problem. An organization called Walk Free estimates there are roughly 50 million victims right now of some degree of human trafficking. More than 27 million of those are in the forced labor area, and another 3.3 million of those specifically focused just on children being victims of human trafficking. When I say it hides in plain sight, that can be everywhere from supply chains for things like cell phones, food, clothing. So the dollars that we spend, that we have, they vote whether we realize it or not. And when we think about it from a Christian perspective, if you look at Proverbs 31, 8-9, it tells us to speak up for the vulnerable. And so stewardship isn't passive in that case. Open your mouths for the mute, for the rights of all who are destitute, and defend the rights of the poor and needy. So that's really the biblical imperative for us and why we think it's critical to work on issues like this.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. In the past, Guidestone's approach will focus largely on screening out certain companies. Today, you're also engaging directly through shareholder advocacy. So talk to us about what that looks like in practice.
Yeah. So the idea of advocacy was really born out of that concept of stewardship. How can we be the best stewards of the companies we're investing in? And there are two levers that we can use to do that. The two levers are really proxy voting and then actual conversations with companies. So making sure we vote every proxy ballot for every company that we invest in. And then the other side, sitting down with leaders of companies to talk through specific issues like child labor, forced labor, and online exploitation. And when we think about that as a practical solution and actual action in the marketplace, one of the more recent endeavors for us was becoming a founding member of something called the Eagle Freedom Alliance. And that is specifically focused on bringing anti-trafficking experts into boardrooms, as opposed to just writing letters and trying to kind of name and shame companies. But it's bringing forth people who can help companies with solutions, because what we found is that many companies, they don't want to have exposure to this. They want to proactively root it out. They want to be good actors in the space. And so what we're trying to do is be proactive and engage in solutions-oriented dialogue that protects people and protects long-term shareholder value.
Will, why is collaboration with other faith-based investors often more effective than trying to create change alone?
Yeah. The idea of collaboration, I think, is important because we think about Christians. It's working together, uniting believers, and that's where the collaboration works with groups like Eagle Freedom Alliance. We're trying to bring a united front of many voices to companies so that they perceive the severity of the issue and that people want real change. And it's the idea that as a unified body, we can bring real change by shining a much brighter and bigger light on issues.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have to leave it there. So appreciate our partnership with Guidestone, and thanks for being here today.
Thanks, Rob. I appreciate it.
That's Will Lofland, Managing Director of Faith-Based Investing at Guidestone Funds. Guidestone truly envisions a world transformed by Christian investing. Their strategies allow investors to be more proactive with their dollars to make a meaningful difference in the world while preparing for their financial future. To learn more, go to faithfi.com/guidestone. That's faithfi.com/guidestone. We'll be right back with your questions.
The opinions offered during this program represent the personal or professional opinions of the participants, given for informational purposes only. Any information provided is not intended to replace advice from a financial, medical, legal, or other professional who understands your specific situation.
Great to have you with us today on Faith and Finance Live. I'm Rob West. Well, we're taking your calls and questions today at 800-525-7000. Again, that number, 800-525-7000. We'd love to hear from you today, help you apply biblical wisdom to your financial decisions and choices. Again, that number, 800-525-7000. You can call right now, and we will get to those questions here in just a moment. Special day for us here at FaithFi. What is that all about? Well, it's launch day for our FaithFi Field Guide number 1, the first one, How Much Money is Enough? So we have studies, we have devotionals, we have a magazine here at FaithFi, we produce this radio broadcast, we have an app. But what we recognized is there were certain questions that people kept asking over and over again, and they wanted a practical answer. They wanted to be able to work through the answer to that particular question. And so we said, well, I think there's a product category that always leads with the biblical framing. We're not going to do anything at FaithFi without looking at scripture related to that topic. But there were certain questions that we felt like really deserved some worksheets, some exercises to help you kind of wrestle through them. And one of those is this very first topic, because we created field guides for these reasons. We wanted to be able to take a single question, one per field guide, give you a biblical perspective, give you the exercises to work it through, and then give you the lived case studies of the people who have gone before you that wrestled with the objections and the challenges related to answering that particular question. So we developed it with our team, our art director, Ashley, our content director, Afton, Taylor is a part of our content team, and really everybody here at FaithFi. And we are so proud of Field Guide number 1, How Much Money is Enough, that will help you answer the question, what does it look like to establish both a lifestyle finish line, how much is enough for my spending, and a lifetime finish line, how much is enough for my accumulation? And when you answer those questions, the impact is incredible because it allows you to have the ability to give perhaps far more than you ever imagined. And it's a great tool to work through with your certified Kingdom advisor. Well, because today is launch day, they literally just got to the warehouse from the printer. We're doing a one-day special. When you buy at least 2 field guides today, they're 50% off, so $5 each. And we've already had 1,000 orders go out today, which is amazing. And we believe there'll be many more before midnight tonight. So if you'd like to get your hands on our very first field guide, How Much Money is Enough, today's the day, 50% off, 2 or more, when you go to faithfi.com/shop. That's the word, faithfi.com/shop. And that will allow you to pick up a copy of them today only. faithfi.com/shop. All right, we've got phone lines open. The number 800-525-7000. Let's begin in Florida. Indra, go right ahead.
Good afternoon. My husband recently died, and he had one specific account that he did not leave a beneficiary. Of course, the bank has taken the money. It's not a huge sum, but do I have to go through probate or an attorney? Is there another route I can go?
Yes. First of all, I'm so sorry to hear about your husband's passing.
Thank you.
Because the account was solely in your husband's name and didn't have a designated beneficiary, those funds are considered probate assets under Florida law. So they can't be transferred directly to you by the financial institution. So you'll need to open a probate proceeding in the Florida Circuit Court where your husband resided, so a judge can formally authorize the transfer of the funds. My understanding is that as of July 1st, 2026, they increased the summary administration threshold. So if the total non-exempt probate assets are $150,000 or less, there is a less expensive, faster probate process. If it exceeds that, it requires formal administration. But in either case, you do have to go through the probate court, and it's recommended that you hire a probate attorney, even for summary administration. That's just going to ensure that the petition is filed correctly and you can secure your spousal inheritance rights.
Okay. Thanks awfully. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for your call today, and call anytime if we can help you, Andrew. Hey, stay on the line if you're still with us. I'd love to send you a copy of an incredible book that was written by a friend of ours, Miriam Neff, when her husband Bob passed away. And it's specifically for women after the passing of their husbands who step into this role of managing the family finances. I think it'll be an encouragement to you, really helpful and practical, and it's our gift to you. So just stay on the line. We'll get your information and get that right out to you. Let's go to Washington. Jada, go ahead.
Hi, my question is, how do I allocate any extra funds we receive? Do I do it to our low-interest mortgage, or should I focus primarily on investment accounts? We typically get a dividend every year that fluctuates, so there could be some extra, and sometimes there's not as much extra, but then in 2 years we will have $1,200 a month freed up from our tuition payment for our youngest child that I want to make sure we can then move into something purposeful.
Yeah, I love that question. And you're thinking about that in the right way, because you want to look at that in light of your values and your priorities, and not just let that get absorbed into lifestyle spending, but really be intentional about it, both now as well as when that grows, that surplus grows in the future. So just give me a rundown. You mentioned a mortgage. What do you owe on that?
Probably about like $195.
And what's the interest rate? You said it was low.
Yeah, like 2.6.
Wow, incredible. Yeah. There's people listening right now that are saying, wait a minute, that's amazing.
We've lived in this house for 23 years, and we raised 4 kids with 1 bathroom, but we did it. Oh, my
goodness. Congratulations. And it sounds like you're putting them through college, which is incredible. Well done.
Primary, elementary.
Okay, primary, elementary. Yeah. Okay, yeah, very good. And then I would imagine no other debt, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, and what about savings? Let's start with emergency funds.
We have about $19,000.
Okay, and how many months of expenses does that represent?
That would probably be maybe 3.
Okay,
if I stretched it 4, maybe. We have pretty low. Okay. Our mortgage is like $891. We're pretty low expenses.
Yeah. Love it. And then what other long-term savings do you have? Are you participating in a retirement plan at work or anything like that?
No, my husband is self-employed, so it's kind of every year our accountant will say, if you put this much towards a Roth or an IRA, you can save this much on your taxes. So we do here and there, but we have maybe around $200,000 in our retirements total. So, but with tuition over the years, we just haven't been able to do that as consistently as I would like to now.
Okay. And I'm up against a break, so we're going to have to come back and finish this on the other side. But one more question. So what retirement accounts do you have? Just 2 IRAs, or do you have additional accounts?
Basically, like a couple IRAs and a couple in a Roth, maybe just kind of a mix of. Okay.
So 2 traditionals and 2 Roths, something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, very good. Okay, let's take this break. When we come back on the other side, we will come right back to you, Jada, and talk about where you go from here with this surplus. So stay right there. Samuel, Kathy, coming your way as well. This is Faith and Finance Live. Great to have you with us today on Faith and Finance Live. I'm Rob West. We're taking your calls and questions today at 800-525-7000. That's 800-525-7000. We've got some lines open today, and we would love to hear from you. Before the break, we were talking to Jada in Washington. They have some extra funds available, living modestly, have a low mortgage in terms of the monthly payment, a very attractive interest rate at 2.6%. They have been, saving diligently in the sense that they have no debt. They've got $19,000 in emergency funds. That's about 3 months worth of expenses. And they've got a couple of IRAs and Roth IRAs that they've been funding each year just based on their tax picture. He works self-employed, so they don't have a company-sponsored retirement plan. So, I would say, Jada, really the priority order, unless there are some other pressing needs, like you mentioned, as you finish out primary school, is there, a Christian school that you need to put them in that's going to take up some of this money? But if you truly have surplus, I would say getting that emergency fund up to 6 months would be first priority. Second priority would be boosting retirement savings, because if you're 50 or older, you can put in $8,600 a piece per at least 2026. So that allows you to put in $17,200. If you're under 50, you guys are only putting in $7,500 each, so $15,000. And there is an ability to put away quite a bit more for a self-employed individual, usually through what we call a SEP IRA, SEP. So it acts like a traditional IRA in that you get the deduction when the money goes in, but it's designed for self-employed people and small business owners. So there's very little administrative burden, easy to set up, just like a traditional IRA, but it allows much larger contributions. So it would allow you guys, if you have the ability to put away quite a bit more money, which not only improves your taxes, but just gets you saving more for the future, which you may need that additional capacity if you're going to put away, let's say, 15%, of your income. And the SEP allows you to do 25% of compensation up to $72,000. And then you can put in some additional money from the business itself. So that would be the other option once you fully fund the Roths for the year and after you've fully funded the emergency fund. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you could set that up at Schwab or Fidelity or wherever you have your traditional IRAs. Maybe you have an advisor. But the same place that is the custodian for those two IRAs could be the custodian for the SEP, and then I would just keep socking money away on that basis as you move forward. I hope that helps. We appreciate your call today. Thanks for being on the program. Let's go to Tennessee. Hi, Ken. Go ahead.
Yes, Rob. Thank you for taking my call. I have a granddaughter that's been asking about setting up. She's heard me talk about money because I teach finances in the jail. I've done it for
nice.
years now. And
awesome.
So I use another program. However, a lot of your concepts I take in and talk to them about, and I'm set up myself. But I've recently started using an app, and I've been reading that a lot of young people are using apps. I wanted to know what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah. I'm a fan. I think anything that encourages, systematic and disciplined saving and investing is good, so long as, we're helping them. We really need to help model both give, save, and including in that saving would be invest. So give, save, and spend. And so we need to model, what does it look like to give? First, them watching you. Second, you all giving together. And then third, the kids giving on their own. So that's key. And then on the saving side, what does it look like to be systematic or automated in our investments? And I think that's where, setting that up is just an automatic investment strategy where it's low cost and it gets you properly diversified. That's where these investment apps can really shine. It could be something like, Robinhood, or even, for young investors, beginners, there's an app called Stash, Stash. It's really designed around learning and long-term investing. So it encourages regular contributions and diversified investing rather than frequent trading. And if there is a downside to these apps, it's just that. It's that, if you're not careful, the technology can encourage frequent trading. And you want to be careful because if you're using it, to teach the principle of patience and long time horizon and diversification, you just, you want to make sure you're reinforcing the right things and not turn it into a game of chasing the next hot stock, because that's not a habit we want to cultivate. But if it's done with the right guidance and where you're modeling it, then it just becomes a tool. And I think it can be a very effective tool, especially in the case of what you're talking about here. We're not far away from having essentially what's called a robo-advisor, so an app-based investment strategy that's really easy to set up for as little as $25, where the investments are all faith-based. But it's right now in beta. It's not out yet. I'll be talking about it when it is available, but there is very soon going to be a solution with faith-based investments that's built for kind of the next generation in the palm of your hand in a really low-cost environment. But in the meantime, something like Betterment or Stash could be a great option.
Well, I think that would be an excellent thing to have as far as faith-based. But young people now are really needing something so that they can get in on the market. Because, if you go to an investor, sometimes the minimum is $5,000-$10,000, and they just don't have it. So,
oh, yeah. No, that's totally right. In fact, many advisors who manage money, the minimum is $100,000 or $200,000 or $300,000. So, yeah, you're exactly right. That's where for the whole space of what we call fintech, financial technology, is exploding. And the sweet spot for it is for those beginner investors that previously did not have an option and now do in a low-cost, properly diversified environment where they can start with essentially next to nothing. So in the meantime, Betterment, the Schwab Intelligent Portfolios, either of those or Stash would be a great option to check out, and I'll let you know when the other one's available. Thanks for your call, Ken. You sound like a great grandfather. We'll be right back. So thankful to have you with us today on Faith and Finance Live. Well, it's launch day for our field guide, How Much Money is Enough? It just hit the warehouse, coming off the printer. It really is it was designed to address a single question. How do you set a financial finish line, both for your lifestyle and for your lifetime, your ultimate balance sheet accumulation? Because when you define enough for your lifestyle and your balance sheet, it really frees you up to do far more giving than you ever imagined. And this field guide is designed for this purpose, to give you a biblical perspective on enough, to take you into the worksheets and the exercises to define your finish line for both your lifestyle and your accumulation, and then to present some lived case studies of people who have gone before you, who have addressed the questions that come up in this area. The obstacles that we face, things like, I don't have enough as it is, or my spouse would never agree, or I don't know where to start, or I don't know what the future holds. How can I set a finish line? You can read the stories of others who have worked through those objections. And this would be a great day for you to pick up a copy of our new field guide, because given that it's launch day for today only, we're making them available 50% off. That means they're $5 each. And when you buy two or more, just go to faithfi.com/shop. That's faithfi.com/shop. Let's head to Colorado Springs. Samuel, thanks for your call. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Rob, for taking my call. My question is about how to set up a memorial charity. I'm trying to set up a charity in my parent memorial. I have in the past, I've been spending my own money, maybe $10,000, $1,000, $500, occasionally, where they will buy food and distribute those to blind people. I'm doing this because my mother has she just had a passion of helping blind people, especially people who are mostly needed people. She herself was blind for 21 years, and because I was in America, she always said it was a blessing to her because I was here and I was able to take care of her. But other friends and other people that were blind in Liberia, West Africa, where that's my native home, they had no help, and she always told me, to help those kind of people. And so I've been trying to do that since she passed. But now I want to set up a charity. I need some help. Friends and family have told me they will help me, but they want to be able to write that off any amount they give me from their taxes. So I was thinking about establishing a charitable organization with a 501c status. And that's what I called to see how can I start that and how can I set up that without, going to more expensive.
Yes. Well, I appreciate that. And what a great mission. And I love the fact that you want to honor your mom's legacy. This would certainly be a meaningful way to do that, Samuel. If you want people to be able to contribute to the organization and receive a tax deduction, you would need to establish a U.S. nonprofit that is recognized by the Internal Revenue Service as what's called a 501c3. That's the portion of the tax code, public charity. So here would be the steps, basically. First of all, you'd want to form let me back up even before that. I think the first step is just to really, and it sounds like you've done some of this, but I would really dial this in because you're going to need this when you file to open the nonprofit. You're going to want to define the mission and the charitable purpose. So what is it that this charity is going to do? And then you form a nonprofit corporation in your state. So you would generally either get a CPA or an attorney to help you with this because they have the templates and they can talk you through the decisions. But you're going to want to create bylaws. So the corporation needs bylaws, essentially the governing document. And then you would appoint a board of directors. And so the board of directors is ultimately who hires the leader of the organization and gives oversight to the organization. And then once you have a corporation in place with bylaws and a board of directors, then you would obtain an EIN, an employer identification number from the IRS. And at that point, and this is where you're going to need some help, generally from an attorney or a CPA, you're going to apply for the 501c3 status. So there's a particular form the IRS has, it's Form 1023, and that's where you would fill out all the information and submit it to the IRS. And then once they approve it, then donations would be tax deductible for donors who itemize their deductions. That can take some time. I will tell you, just recently we formed or were a part of forming a new nonprofit here in Georgia, and it took 5 weeks, which is a lot quicker than what I've experienced in the past. It can take months and months. It was very quick. And I think that's just, the IRS is approving these fairly quickly right now, but that's the process you would go to. And then essentially, since the ministry is going to be sending money to Liberia, the U.S. charity is going to need to maintain control and oversight of how the funds are used. So you'll want to keep detailed records of the grants and the expenditures. You're going to want to have trusted partners and accountability in Liberia for how the money is used when it gets there. You're going to want to avoid just simply being what you might call a pass-through for another organization or individual overseas. You're really going to want to exercise and be able to demonstrate that you're exercising control over that because it's a U.S. charity. But assuming you put all those pieces in place and either work with a nonprofit attorney or a CPA familiar with charitable organizations, that could be a great way to go. The other approach, which is much simpler, would be to open what's called a donor-advised fund here in the States, which you could do with our friends at the National Christian Foundation. And gifts could be made to the donor-advised fund, which is a charitable contribution, and then it could be granted out to another 501c3, assuming there was an organization in Liberia, a C3 that you could give to. If there isn't, then that's where you would need to form your own. But let me stop there and just get your thoughts on all that.
No, I think that's what I was looking at. I believe, yes, as you said, the mission, the organization mission and all that thing, I have it already because I know what I really want to do. But creating bylaws and probably putting the board of directors together. Maybe I will need some help from attorney or other people you are talking about and so forth. But I think this would be the cheaper way to go other than to I saw an organization called Charity Smith. They was looking for like $975 to help, but that was going to be so costly. So I think this is okay.
Yeah, it's probably going to cost you a few $1,000s to get this set up for the time of the attorney or the CPA, but having the person who is real familiar with filing for a nonprofit status and setting up the corporation is worth the cost because it'll be done right and much quicker. Thanks for your call, Samuel. We appreciate it. Well, we may have room for one or two more calls before the end of the program at 800-525-7000. But in the meantime, Bob Dahl is here, and it's a good thing because, Bob, S&P 500, 7,700. Can you believe it?
Hard to believe. Another new high. The Dow the same. The NASDAQ not far behind. Banner day, as you see on your screen, up, depending on the average, around 2%. It started with great earnings from Palantir and Caterpillar, two different parts of the market, and the market caught fire, and the hope for some peace in the Middle East also spurred things up another leg.
Bob, what does the breadth of this rally look like? I mean, is it concentrated to these mega caps, or is it much bigger than that?
No, it's pretty strong, Rob. It's very broad. There were also 2,000, which is a measure of small cap stocks, was up 1.8% today. So it's broad-based, Rob.
Yeah. Where do you think what leads the way? What sectors lead the way over the balance of the year in your mind?
Well, for the market to go noticeably higher, technology's got to be part of it. It's such a big part of the market, and it has been leading. Not all tech, but much of tech. Financials we've talked about from time to time. They lagged a bit today. They were only up 1%, but they've been part of the story as well. What has lagged a bit is the consumer sector and some of the more defensive sectors. For example, utilities and energy and healthcare stocks were actually down today slightly.
Yeah. Bob, obviously AI continues to be front and center. I know the SpaceX, is reporting, and they're talking about costs related to AI. So you just think about the productivity enhancements that are coming, or maybe are already being realized. Is that a big part of the story of these stellar earnings that are coming out yet?
Not so much, Rob. That's still in front of us. I think that the hope is that AI will lead to lots of productivity. But while you hear companies talking about AI, not a lot of them are saying, and it's helped our earnings this quarter. That's yet to come in the months and perhaps years to come, Rob.
Bob, it seems like a rate hike is all but a foregone conclusion at this point. Is that right? And what would that mean for this exuberance in the market?
Yeah, it's more likely yes than no, but it's not a gimme. We have two more inflation numbers and an employment number to be received before the September Fed meeting. I think the Fed is hoping that inflation will be quiet. I think that's asking a lot. And then the employment number will remain strong, and therefore they can sit on their hands a bit longer, perhaps after the election. But there is probably a higher probability that they do raise rates to fight that inflation that is still too much above 2 to satisfy them.
Bob, bond investors are enjoying these yields here, but obviously if you own a bond fund, you're seeing that pull back or at least go sideways, and that can be discouraging. So where does that go from here?
I think that we've seen really since the pandemic, we've seen bond prices fall and yields move up irregularly, and there's probably more of that to come until this business cycle ends, whenever that is, and or inflation can turn around and go back down, which I think is going to be hard to get it down a significant amount absent a recession, which doesn't seem to be anywhere in the near-term horizon.
Yeah. Bob, you had a report out in your deliberations just about what happens, at least historically speaking, after a midterm election. Share that with us.
Yeah, it's a beautiful fact. That is, since World War II, every midterm election, in other words, every 4 years from the November election out 9 months, the stock market has always gone up. So we can hope, cross our fingers, and say a little prayer that maybe it repeats itself.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Last question, Bob. Obviously, you and the team at Crossmark are leading the way in the area of faith-based investing. What are you observing right now just in terms of faith-based investing performance and adoption among believers?
Performance every bit is strong, in some cases stronger than non-faith-based investing, let's just call it even, and more interest and more take-up. That is, more and more people are saying, yeah, I understand it now, I want to get on board. It's slow, but it's happening.
Yeah. I heard from a friend at church Monday. He said, Rob, I mean, this is a deacon. He's an executive at the biggest construction company here in Atlanta. He said, we've set a finish line. We've been giving generously. We really take seriously our stewardship role. I read a book over the weekend, and it rocked my world, and it had to do with lining up my values with my investments. And he said, I'm all in. I just had no idea. And I think that's probably the story for most Christians. Would you agree?
Yeah, lots of them. Many become curious and then start doing some research. To go the whole way after reading a book on a weekend is more the extreme, but you're hearing more and more of it as people say, hey, if I can line up my investments for this life and, if you will, the life to come, why wouldn't I? Yeah,
it's well said, Bob. Hey, we appreciate your time as always. Thanks for your ministry.
Have a great rest of the week. Bye-bye.
All right. That's Bob Dahl. He's CEO and CIO at Crossmark Global Investments. So appreciate his analysis of the markets each week. All right, let's try to finish out the program today. We're going to head out to California. Carol, how can I help you?
Actually, I'm from Colorado.
Okay, great. We'll take another C state. Go right ahead.
Okay. I have an American Fidelity Fixed Annuity 403B, and I've had it since 2016, but I don't work for this employer anymore. This is with the school. I work for another school here in Montrose. So I don't believe that this has gone anywhere. I mean, it's under $2,000. And I would like to, I went online and AI is saying, giving me ideas of you should invest with a 401 or 401k or, some sort of Roth. And, I don't really know. My husband said, just leave it alone. Part of me says, I could earn money, invest in this.
Yeah. So you don't want to let it sit on autopilot. That's for sure. How much do you have roughly in this account, Carol? Do you know?
$1,912.68. Not much.
Okay. Yeah. And did you say you have another 403B with your new employer?
I don't know if I do or not offhand. I'd have to look at the stub.
Okay.
I'm assuming they do give you that.
Okay.
But
well, I would start there because the easiest thing that's going to avoid you having another account to keep up with, because you can roll it to an IRA, but then you're sitting with an IRA with $1,000 in it, and you got to get that invested. So the simpler approach would be if you do have a new company-sponsored plan where you work today, and they would allow you to roll the old 403B into this new 403B or 401k, and then you have everything in one place, and then you just invest everything the way you want to, but you only keep up with one account. If that's not an option, and it may not be, then what I would suggest is you open an IRA, let's say at Fidelity or Schwab, You could open the Schwab Intelligent Portfolios. That's their robo-advisor, kind of a do-it-yourself, very easy, very low cost. Or the equivalent at Fidelity is called Fidelity Go. Either of those could work for you. Open an IRA. You would get the paperwork from American to roll that 403B into your new IRA at Fidelity or Schwab. You'd answer the questions. It would automatically invest it, so that money would start working for you in the market. And then you could just let it grow and kind of forget about it. That would be the second option if your current employer will not allow you to roll it in there.
Right, because that's where I'm at is at this point. I don't know. And I would rather just put it somewhere if I don't have it, and then let it just keep. I'm not going to keep. I don't keep track of that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
it's really not good, but I don't.
Well, that's not a bad idea, just to kind of set it and forget it, and maybe you check back on it once a year or something like that. But I think the idea would be you want to go ahead and get it invested and just let it grow, because it's only $1,000, but it's $1,000, and you want to take good care of it.
Right. Okay. All right.
All right.
I will check into that. I appreciate that very much.
Of course, Carol. Thank you for your call today, and Lord bless you. Well, folks, we're about out of time here today. So a couple of reminders. First of all, our goal here on this program each day is to help you remember that God owns it all, and that you and I are managers of what God has entrusted to us. That is a high calling, and it leads to two things. It leads to humility, first and foremost, because we know that it's not our doing. It's ultimately God's. But it also leads to hope, because we're reminded that we're not carrying this alone, that you and I serve the God of the universe, and we're managing his resources, and he can be trusted. And that's a really comforting idea, is that we're not alone in this. And then when we, lean into contentment and gratitude and generosity and love for neighbor, not indifference, love for neighbor. And when we trust God as our provider, that creates and really tears down those potential gaps, the things that can trip us up in our financial lives. And when we have that right heart posture, and then we start using good, sound money management principles and ideas like spending less than we earn and avoiding debt and setting long-term goals and having some margin, and understanding that we should give generously because giving breaks the grip of money over our lives, then we put ourselves in a position to experience God's best. And that's ultimately what we want for you. Listen, it's not going to be free of struggle. We live in a fallen world, but we can be a part of God's redemptive purposes as we hold loosely what he's entrusted to us and give and invest in a way that loves our neighbor and promotes the common good, because that results in human flourishing. And that's the way God designed it. Hey, before we wrap up today, let me remind you once again, it's launch day until 11:59 tonight for our first ever field guide, How Much Money is Enough? It'll help you set a lifestyle and a lifetime finish line, and they're 50% off today only for an order of 2 or more at faithfi.com/shop. Big thanks to Taylor, Tahira, Josh, and Omar. Faith and Finance Live is a partnership between Moody Radio and FaithFi. We'll see you tomorrow. God bless you.